NFL draft is upon us. Of course, round one Thursday night, and always a pleasure to catch up with Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Of course, a former NFL lineman as well. Ross, how are you?
Adam, doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me. I am so fired up for the draft.
So I wish we could be fired up about picks 1 and 2, but I think everyone knows what direction that's going to go in. Trevor Lawrence to the Jags, Zach Wilson, not a shock anymore, but at least once upon a time, shockingly number 2 to the Jets. That's the expectation. So kind of a two-part question to start us off. Is Wilson the right move at number 2? And also, was moving on from Sam Darnold, as of course he's a Carolina Panther now, was that the right decision?
So I feel strongly that moving on from Darnold was the right decision. You know, you talk with enough people, and I love Sam Darnold, Adam. I mean, he was the quarterback for the U.S. Army Bowl, you know, way back when I broadcast that. I was very impressed with him at SC, where he did in the Rose Bowl against Penn State. But he had 3 years, and I know the Jets did not set him up for success. I know that. But he really didn't do a good job of bringing those guys along with him and sort of trying to overcome his surroundings. I know it's not easy, but I think they made the right decision, because even if Darnold ended up playing well this year with the new coaching staff, then you're automatically already on the hook for a lot of money. I think they're better off resetting at the quarterback position. And this Zach Wilson's kind of crazy, man, because it came out of nowhere. I mean, I don't think I ever even heard of the guy until like 4 weeks into this season. Everybody started to have a buzz about him, and then he started to watch some of his games, and you see some of the throws he can make. It's like Mahomesian or Aaron Rodgersian. And so people are really fired up. I know Chris Sims said he thinks that Zach Wilson's the best player. I don't know if I would take him over Trevor Lawrence. In fact, I know I wouldn't, but he has enough of those spectacular throws that people are obviously really fired up about him.
You were in the league. You followed the draft long enough, obviously. Do you ever, I don't know, are you skeptical? Are you taken aback, though, when these guys do burst onto the scene late that people haven't heard of until partway into the season? And you, as someone who covers football, that means the people who really don't pay attention to football really never heard of him until just a few weeks ago. And all of a sudden, number 2 expected pick in the draft. Or do those guys sort of come along with some red flags for you just because they don't come from the really heralded programs?
Yeah, I don't think it's the program as much as really only the 1 year of playing at a high level. It feels like a 1-year wonder, so to speak. So I would describe it and say I have a healthy amount of skepticism of guys like Zach Wilson. But then, Adam, you see some of the throws he makes, some of the plays he makes, and you're like, holy crap, dude. Like that is legit right there. So I'm going to maintain my skepticism while still being wowed by some of the physical gifts that Zach Wilson possesses.
Assuming this thing stays with what everyone expects, including the odds makers over at the DK Sportsbook, then most would say the draft doesn't really start until pick 3. San Fran gave up a bundle to jump up to number 3, and clearly to take a quarterback. I mean, you can disguise it however you want. They're taking a quarterback. Doesn't bode well for Jimmy Garoppolo, be it now or a year from now. He's should be renting, not buying, obviously, there with San Francisco. Is it Mac Jones or Trey Lance, or even the wild card of Justin Fields?
Well, it's definitely not Justin Fields. I mean, I think it's going to be Mac Jones, and I think that Kyle Shanahan knew that it would be Mac Jones when he made the trade. However, there's no reason not to go through the process of the pro day, the second pro day, and meet with Trey Lance and meet with Justin Fields and sort of confirm or deny his initial impression, initial reaction, which is that Jones is the guy for him. He's had, the last few weeks to really make sure that's the case. I would just argue, I think it's hard to go away from that. I think it's hard to feel one way when you make a trade where you give up 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick and then change your mind. I mean, one of those other guys would have had to do something very, very special for Kyle Shanahan to change his mind, and I don't think it happened. I think it'll be Mac Jones. It's interesting because I had Sage Rosenfels, the former 12-year NFL quarterback, on the Ross Tucker podcast recently. He played multiple years for Kyle Shanahan in Houston, and he just talked about the fact that Kyle wants an executor of the offense. It's almost like, Adam, all the Madden Sims that you guys do,
Yeah.
on DraftKings. You just want, when you push the joystick or when you make them, you just want the guy when you're playing a video game to do what you tell him to do. I think Kyle Shanahan really just wants whoever's going to throw the ball to who he tells them to throw it to as accurately as possible. He's not looking for the extra extended play, second reaction play. Just, if you just do what I tell you to do, we will win.
Is that and this isn't even about Shanahan or Mac Jones. Is that the move at number 3 in a draft to take a guy who's more of a game manager than has that high upside, that high potential, that flair for the dramatic, I guess?
I think that Kyle believes that if he has a high level game manager, meaning operating his offense, I mean, the guy completed over 77% of his passes in college football, which is ridiculous. I know for a fact that Kyle Shanahan loved Matt Schaub, loves Kirk Cousins. I think he believes if he had players like that, they could stay healthy and consistently make the right read and be accurate, that he would be a Super Bowl contending coach every year. I think he thinks that's what Mac Jones is. Look, I think reasonable minds can disagree. I know there are people that want the upside. Kyle Shanahan doesn't want the downside. He doesn't want the variance. He doesn't need the upside. Just give him the consistency.
So short of not knowing whether we're going to be alive to have this conversation on Sunday, if you ask Kyle Shanahan, what do you, is Garoppolo going to be on that roster after the draft, or is he as good as gone in the next couple of days?
As good as gone. Yeah, I think he's as good as gone. I'd be surprised. The real interesting thing to me is, like, where is he going to go? New England's the obvious one. Perhaps Chicago could try to double dip and pair him with Andy Dalton to give him, two tools in their toolbox, so to speak. But there's not really a lot of places. Maybe Denver. I don't think Carolina would go there in addition to Sam Darnold. So it doesn't feel like there's that many landing spots for Jimmy G.
It's interesting. Do you think, obviously, on the heels of that Niners trade, and there have been other deals as well, do you expect a lot of movement, especially on day one of the draft? Are there going to be more trades to be made?
I don't think so. I think because of all of the uncertainty, number one, because of the lowered salary cap and the uncertainty with off the field stuff and medical stuff, because of the uniqueness of the process this year, I think you'll see more teams be conservative, stay where they are, and pick the guy that they have best on their board, as opposed to, spending future assets to try to get people. So I don't think, I might be wrong, and there certainly could be a trade in the top 10 for a quarterback, but I tend to believe that there will not be as many trades as there normally are.
As we look at the top handful of picks projected in this draft, you have to, of course, include someone like Kyle Pitts, tight end, who is probably, if not probably, definitely the best pass catcher in this draft. To the point that the ceiling is so high, you wonder if he's going to go to the Falcons at number 4, if Atlanta hangs on to that pick and there isn't another quarterback taken there. Wherever he's going somewhere very early. Are we going to look back in X number of years and say that it wasn't one of the QBs, it was actually Pitts who's going to be the best player coming out of this first round?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly, I think everybody's excited about Trevor Lawrence and these quarterbacks, but if you had to say to me, which one of these players is most likely to someday wear a gold jacket and be a Hall of Famer, it would be Kyle Pitts. I mean, he is just a true rarity, a unicorn, they call him. I think is unstoppable, and I think he's going to be a dominant player in the NFL, really from week 1 as a rookie.
Do you think Pitts, as opposed to one of those QBs, will have the biggest year 1 impact as well?
Yeah, I do. Now, I don't know if he'll have a bigger impact than Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson or even Mac Jones, but I think he'll have a bigger impact than the guys that are drafted after him, which I think will probably be guys like Trey Lance and Justin Fields. Hard to have more of an impact than a starting quarterback, and I think those top 3 guys will all start. But the other guys that might not start right away, absolutely, I think Pitts will have a bigger impact.
As a former lineman yourself, and you look at some of the guys that are projected to go here in the opening round, which offensive lineman do you think will make the biggest impact in year one?
I really like Rashawn Slater from Northwestern. I think he's really good. You know, some people talk about his size and maybe that he can't play tackle. My philosophy on that is always let him prove they can't. Put him at tackle until he shows he can't do it. There are a lot of different body types that have shown they can get the job done on the outside. Slater blocked Chase Young better than any college player by far. And that's good enough for me to at least try him at tackle.
So for you, again, we've mentioned you played in the league and you played for 40 plus games for franchises. So let's talk about some of the teams that you played for once upon a time, what they're going to do here in this draft. Let's begin with Dallas, because the Cowboys, off of a 6-win season, incredibly disappointing for obvious reasons. Losing Dak Prescott, that played a crucial role in that. He's back, he's healthy, and now the question is, what are they going to do at number 10, provided they stay at number 10, other than, you would think, rebuild their defense? The most mocked players to Dallas are cornerbacks, whether it's Surtain or Horn. Who do you think's the best fit?
Yeah, I think it'll be one of those two guys is probably the most likely. And I think if he's still there, it'll be Patrick Surtain the second. I also think there's an outside chance that a guy like Micah Parsons. Now, they probably won't do it because they do still have Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, but they're a different team when they have linebackers playing at a high level. And Vander Esch and Jalen Smith are already pretty beat up in their young careers, but I'm pretty confident they'll go corner. I think at least one of those guys will be there, and the Cowboys will take whichever one still is. If they get the choice of both, they'll probably be more conservative and go Surtain.
You were briefly a Patriot. We could spend the next hour just talking about the Pats and expecting the unexpected when it comes to Bill Belichick. A lot of people are wondering, obviously, what's the move, given this team is in the QB market really for the first time in almost 3 decades, between Brady and Bledsoe before him. So it's, do they trade up and go after a Fields, somebody like that? Do they trade back and attack the quarterback position and, day 2, perhaps with a Mond or a Trask? Or, of course, there is that Garoppolo X factor, who you said before you think is as good as gone right now from San Fran. How's this all play out?
So I think the most likely scenario is probably Jimmy G. Now, I don't think they're going to trade up. If one of the guys fell to them at 15, I think that's a possibility. But I think they're going to be able to get Jimmy G on the cheap, because I don't think people want to take on his contract. And so I think the Patriots will be able to get him for not a whole lot in terms of draft choice compensation. I think Belichick wants to win now. I don't think he wants to have the patience to see if Justin Fields or Trey Lance can develop.
Washington football team has pick number 19, of course, added Ryan Fitzpatrick, Harvard's own, in the offseason, a guy you've had on your Ross Tucker football podcasts recently during this offseason as well. So, he certainly is excited about the opportunity he has with Washington, but he's not a long-term solution. So is this a team that could think about trading up and trying to get a quarterback?
Well, they are. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think they are a team that would consider that, especially if these guys started to fall into the teens. But to get where the Washington football team is at 19 and move up to try to get one of these guys in the top 10, I don't think they want to expend that level of assets, especially since they do have Fitz this year. So I would say it's possible, but unlikely.
The Buffalo Bills, they don't need a quarterback. They've got that position well covered with Josh Allen. Heck, they added Mitchell Trubisky as their backup as well. So this is not a team at number 30 that is going to be a focal point in the draft. Let's talk about a team then instead that you cover now, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. The Carson Wentz era, that's over. Jalen Hurts at this point in time getting the reins, but maybe not alone. Maybe a little QB competition. Could they make a move?
I don't think so. I really do believe they want to give Jalen Hurts every opportunity to succeed this year. And if he doesn't, they're going to have, more than likely, depending on Wentz's playing time in Indy, 3 first-round picks next year, which means they can move up to get a quarterback next year, or maybe trade for Russell Wilson, maybe trade for Deshaun Watson. You never know, other than the fact that if Hurts is not the guy, the Eagles are well positioned to find the guy a year from now.
So what do you suppose makes sense for Philadelphia at number 12 to help move that franchise along?
So I think they're hoping one of the top two corners is still there for them, J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain. I'm not sure they are, but if they're not, that means one of the top three receivers is, and my guess would be the Eagles would go in that direction at that point, maybe like Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith.
You know him from the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. He is Ross Tucker. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Dream Stream, my friend. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Adam. Thank you for having me.